Hello everybody and welcome to this lesson for scripting C# in Unity. In this lesson we're going to create a spawner script with the help of functions, and we're going to add two vectors together and then return it also with a function. And we want our functions to be read from the variables from the parameters instead of making a variable. So let's start. As you can see, I got a scene here with a camera, and I got three objects here that got the tag spawn, because we're gonna have three different spawn positions, and there's gonna be one object spawned at each of the objects. So before we're gonna create a script, we need to create a prefab that can be spawned. So we're gonna create a prefab, and I'm gonna call it monster, and I'm gonna create a square just so that we have something to look at, and we're gonna put this square into the prefab and then delete this square. So we got a monster here that's gonna be spawned. So let's create our script, and we're gonna call this script spawner, and open it in order to develop. So at first we start by removing the update function because we're not gonna use it. The first thing is the variable we want for the monster. So we're going to make it public game object, and this is going to be called monster. And now in the start function, we want to have a list or an array with all our spawners. And instead of dragging it into the inspector with variables over here, we're just gonna create it here. So we're gonna make a game object, and we're gonna make it an array. And an array is actually just a container. In this case, it's gonna be a container for game objects, and this indicates that it is an array. We're gonna call it spawners, and this is equal to game object dot find game objects with tag. Make sure it's the S here, so because then that will return an array, as you can see, while this one will just return a single object. So we need to this one, and our tag was spawn. So now we got our array with game objects, and now we are gonna loop through every single spawn object, and we're gonna spawn something else. So we're gonna say for loop, and we're gonna make the integer I is 0, and it will continue as long as the I is less than spawners, which is our array, dot length. And for every time it loops through, we say that I needs to be increased by 1. So in this position here, we're gonna call our function that should spawn it, and we're gonna give it the location of each of the game objects. But first we're gonna create the function itself. So that's gonna be a void spawn, and this one needs to have a parameters, and the parameter is what we give to the function so it can use it. And this one is going to be the factor 3, and we're going to call it plus, and because it's for the position that we want to give with. So we're going to call the instantiate, and what it needs to instantiate is our monster, and then the position, and the position is given to the function, so we can just say pause, and that will just refer to this pulse here in the parameters. And then this one we're gonna say quaternion.identity. And that's it for that one. But now we need to actually call this spawn for each object here. So how we're gonna do that? We're just gonna say spawn, and what it wants is a position, as you can see, which is correct because it's here. Well, we know that that every time it loops through means there's still an object in the spawn that we have not been to yet. So if we say spawners, and then we're gonna open this bracket things, and we're gonna say I, because I is our iterator that's being increased for each time we loop through it. So this will, the first time it will return the zero, the object 0 or element 0 from the array spawners, and arrays always start with 0 and then go up. So this way we already got the first object if we loop through this first time. And we want, and it's a game object, and if we want the position we need to have the transform and then position. And the second time it will get here, this one will be increased and will be 1, and that will actually refer to the second object in our array. So just let's save it, go back to Unity, and for this one I'm gonna put the spawner not on the monster, not on those, but just on the camera. You can actually put it on any object you want, but I find that it is most easy to have it on the camera at this point. So the only thing we have to do now is drag our monster object here. And if we start, it should spawn 3 orbs immediately on those 3 positions. So let's see. There we go. Got 3 orbs, all spawned. And that's actually it for the spawner script. So the next script we're gonna create is just gonna add 2 vectors. And we're gonna call this the adder. Okay, so we do not need the update function here again. So you can just remove it. Okay, and for this one we are gonna determine 2 vectors at the beginning. So it's gonna be vector 3. And I'm going to call this my vector 1, and we're going to have a public vector 3, and I'm going to call it my vector 2. These are the 2 vectors that are going to be added together. Okay, so what we're going to do, we are going to make the function first, and this one will have a return type, and normally we would say void and then, for example, add vectors and then or vectors, but void actually means it does not have to return anything. Void is empty, but we wanted to return the vector, the result of the 2 vectors added together, and that one needs to be vector 3. So vector 3 add vectors means that it wants, it will return a vector 3 type object. Okay, and what we want to have this as parameters is a vector 3, and that's going to be my vector 1, but just to avoid confusion I'm just going to call this vec1, and the other one, vector 2, is going to be vec2. And because it just needs to return this, we can just say return and then vec1 plus vec2, simple as that. So if we call this and we give it 2 vector 3s, it will return the sum of those 2 vectors. So we just need to call it here. We want to put the result of the sum of those 2 vectors in our debug. So we're just going to say debug.log, and no quotes because it's just going to be a value. We're going to say add vectors, and as you can see it wants a vector 1 and a vector 2, and that's going to be my vector 1 and my vector 2. So we did not use any variable to store something between, like it just did something with it and it returned immediately. We did not have to make a third variable to store the result and then return that. We can just do it like this. So let's save this, back to Unity, and we're gonna put the adder on the camera too, and we're gonna put numbers in here. So we're gonna say 3, 5, 7, and here we're gonna say, let's see, 3, 1, and -1. Let's see. So what this should return is the sum of this all together. So this is going to be 6, this one is going to be 6, and this one is going to be 6. What a coincidence. So let's see. Going to the console, going to play, and as you can see it returns 6.0 because it's a float then. So 6, 6, 6. And that's actually it. Easy as that. So you could, for the spawner script, you could add another one. So make another one and put there. It would just spawn 4 orbs. Simple as that. It's very handy. You could make games like that with an unlimited amount of spawners, and then maybe use a random class to choose one of those objects and spawn something at it to make like one spawn each time on a random location. So that's actually it for this lesson. If you learned something, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel. I got a lot of nice tutorials there and some scripts for you. And yeah, I see you next time. Bye.